So after 30 days of testing, this is the robot mower that I would recommend to family and friends. So here's the thing about my robotic mower reviews. I get sometimes 1 to 2 robotic mower review requests over late winter, early spring, and I have some requirements. One being that the robot is sufficiently sized to cut a generous portion of my yard. Even if you have a smaller yard, the flexibility is nice to be able to map additional areas. Maybe you want to help out your neighbor. And I also request to keep that mower because I want viewers to be able to continuously see that mower in my videos and follow up with viewers throughout the season as it gets to work. Some of my requirements and my recommendations for robotic mowers are that they be all-wheel drive. If you're seeking a robot mower and you're looking at a model that is not all-wheel drive, I would caution you to look at one that is all-wheel drive. Although your lawn may be flat, although you may not have a lot of humps and bumps in your lawn, that all-wheel drive system is really important. And this is the Mova LiDAX 3000. So it's the first Mova model that comes with all-wheel drive system built in and all 4 wheels. And it has performed, from what I can tell you, flawlessly since I set it up just over 30 days ago. Some of the points that I really like about it are its build quality. I want to show you actually in process how this mower is mapped and the quality of work that it does. I'll put some stats on the screen about all the features this robot mower offers, and you can go look at those features yourself because I want to talk about more about the real world experience. Setup was extremely easy, probably one of the easiest robot mowers that I've set up from different brands I've tried and the different models that I've tried. I really appreciated just being able to get it out of the box, and there was no assembly required other than the dock pieces snapping together and plugging in. Sometimes you get these robot mowers and you may have to attach a bumper or something else. Mova's done a really good job with the setup process and just taking it out of the box and it being ready to use. For my initial impressions, I was really impressed with the build quality. I'll show you some video as I unbox this robot. It's built really well. It has a nice full color screen, which I've never seen on a robot mower before. It's got this really nice knob that you'll see in like premium automobiles to turn and dial the settings in. You don't need to use the app to start the mower. You can actually start it on the screen. It has anti-theft frost protection, so it will stop charging if the temperature gets too low. All the things that you would want in a robotic mower. Now, because my approach to reviewing these mowers has been a little different this year, I started creating like a listing here of my initial impressions all the way through week 1, 2, and 3 of my experience, mentioning the things that was either like a pro, a con, some things I noticed that would be just nice additions. I'm going to share that on the screen right quick, but some of the things that I noticed very quickly is it's just really quiet. I also noticed that because Mova is a robotic vacuum cleaner company as well, that they implemented some really interesting features that I've not seen in other robotic mowers, including the ability to just mark on the map an area where you don't want the mower to go, or an ability to set a circle or another shape no-go zone, which is really game-changing for the gardener. Sometimes I'm working out in the yard. I do not want to have to stop the mower and remap an area that I'm working on so the mower doesn't go into it, but I want the remainder of my grass being maintained. I can just add from the screen and the map on the app that I don't want the mower going into that area. Other mowers that I've used, you actually have to take the mower out there. You have to add a no-go zone manually through the app and drive the mower around. That is a game-changing feature for me, and it's one of the first things that I tried out because I mapped this area behind me here, which is around our pool. Pretty complicated landscape. It's kind of U-shaped. There's concrete, there's flower beds, there's a tiny, tiny section over here. And then I just added some barriers that I didn't want it going into. But here's why I would recommend it to my family and friends. As I mentioned, I've tried this 30 days. I've had no issues with it. It has cut and did its job flawlessly since I started it. I've had one instance where the mower got stuck, and that's because a stick from my raw kind of mulch here got lodged under the blades in the middle of the yard. The dog must have brought a stick out of the flower bed. And that was it. I've had no issues with the mower docking to recharge, which is kind of unbelievable. If you've used robot mowers before, all the ones that I've tried have had at some point an issue docking to recharge, which totally defeats the purpose of an autonomous mower when you're at work trying to start a mowing session and the mower completes part of the session and can't redock to recharge because something went wrong. Now, in previous years, I've recommended mowers that had RTK systems. RTK is still really popular, but it's coming out of its popularity because of LiDAR. So LiDAR uses lasers. The LiDAX has a little module on the top of it that actually spins around and gathers a 3D image of the area that it's mowing for centimeter level accuracy around your mower. And I have to admit, I was a little skeptical at first. I've had really good success with RTK, had never really experienced anything with LiDAR other than maybe some robotic vacuums. And using that outdoors gave me some pause because I have a really open area. This area right here actually is pretty normally sized for someone's backyard. There's lots of things for the laser to bounce off of, but I was really cautious taking it to other parts of the property, like the front yard, where there are only trees in some areas, and other areas still it's very far away from something that it could bounce off of. But after testing it, I was blown away because even though I didn't map the mower to the edge of my property, I'll show you on the screen the 3D map, which is also pretty neat. It detected trees that were really far away. So I think the laser gets reflectivity up to around 230 feet. So unless you're just in the middle of nowhere with no signs of anything that it could touch on and map, you're going to have a good result. And I had a flawless result mowing up front in the front of my property, which I will talk about later in this video. I mean, look at those lines there. I have mine set on a checkerboard approach. So this robot can cut a checkerboard. One day it cuts one way and the other day it turns 90 degrees. That's the way mine's doing. So a couple days ago it cut this way, which you can still see the beautiful lines that it made. So if you're really into lawn lines, it works really well that way. And today it's cutting this way all the way back and forth. It cuts this space at the slow pace, which is, I think it's called standard, at around just less than 2 hours, which is perfect. So another thing about this mower, why I really love it for family and friends, is its ease of use. So a lot of robot mowers, when you get them in, you've got to tinker with the settings and your grass type. You got to select the crossover width or how much overlap you need the mower to do. You need to set how many laps around the perimeter you want it to do, what type of turn style you want it to do, the height you want it to do. And this mower with standard presets cuts perfectly. There's no tinkering with it. Now there are some features in there. There's one called Ultra Trim that I tested out for a bit. Ultra Trim is limited to 3 centimeters. And so what it does is it goes around the boundary of your property when it's done mowing the center, and then it cuts a little lower or higher based on your grass type. But it is limited to 3 centimeters. So here where we have primarily bluegrass and tall fescue in Ohio, I turned off that Ultra Trim feature and it still mows the edges fine. It just doesn't set the height lower. So if you're interested in getting a little trimming closer to the ground, one interesting feature about Ultra Trim also is it shifts the mower deck over internally to trim closer to the edge. So that's an interesting feature, but not one that I can use here because I want my grass cut a little higher. After having tried other robot mower brands over the past couple years as well, I noticed immediately upon setting it up that Mova had done some serious market research to determine what were the pain points that other customers were experiencing with robot mowers. One I have complained about over the past couple years with other brands is on my larger property on channels where you map between zones, the mowers tend to take the same path over and over, which leads to ruts. Even though these are small, lightweight mowers, over time, taking the same channel back and forth to various areas of the yard creates 2 little wheel lines all the way around your property in certain areas. This one has a smart path mapping feature, so it doesn't necessarily use the same path every time to go back to the charger. Something I also noticed with this mower, which I have seen issues with on all other mowers, is it does use zero tank turns, but I have not had it damage my grass, which is kind of incredible. Like typically zero tank turns on some mowers, depending on how thick your grass is and the time of the season and how wet it is, can really damage the lawn where it's doing those zero turns. This one has had no issues doing that, and especially in front of the dock where that tends to happen the most. When the mower comes out to do its initial cutting, it kind of spins around to detect its position accurately with the LiDAR, and it does that over and over every time it comes out to mow, and there is virtually no area that you can tell that it's damaging the lawn. Now, something I wish Mova would kind of update and make clear on their website, and it is clear, I think, on their website if you read the fine print, but this mower is marketed even on the box to cut up to 3/4 of an acre. But you can actually map 2 maps with 3/4 of an acre. So I have my pool area mapped, and then the next clip we're going to talk about the front area of my house, which is an entirely different map. So technically this robot can map and cut up to 1.5 acres, which is enough for most people and their standard yard sizes. So let's also talk a little bit about firmware updates, because a lot to deal with these robot mowers are with firmware updates. Sometimes you'll get a firmware update that just causes the mower to behave weirdly. Over my 30+ days of testing, there have been 3 firmware updates, I believe. One initially when I took it out of the box to update. There was one pretty shortly in, about a week or so after that, I believe. And then there was one within the past week, and there has been no issues continuing my mow with it. Nothing I've noticed that's cutting differently than before. So Mova is doing a really good job testing those firmware updates before they're delivering them and pushing them out to the customers to update. In some brands, communities, it's even been recommended that you just don't update your robot mower if it's working correctly. As a tester, I have tested and updated, and they've worked fine. So Mova has had no issues with the firmware updates during my testing. Now that we talked a little about some features, setup, and my experience, let's take a look back about 2 weeks, and we'll go over how you would set up this mower and map it to a new zone, how those features work together, and my experience doing that at the front of my property. So it's been about 2 weeks since I've been mowing with the Mova mower in the backyard around the pool, and it's been doing a really incredible job. I'm really impressed with its performance. But one thing I didn't realize when I originally got this mower is all the marketing kind of indicates that it can cut even the box lawns up to 0.75 acres. But on their website, it actually says it can have dual maps. So that's 2.75 acres. So it can cut up to 1.5 acres. I'm going to go grab the mower right now, and we're going to test mapping this front area of my home. I'm really interested in seeing how it performs in that realm, because it does not have RTK, which I really love with other mowers for like open fields and stuff. So using LiDAR, there must be some type of reflection or something for the laser to bounce off of to gather the distance and keep track of it. So in an open field, I was afraid it might have more problems. It's doing a wonderful job in the backyard because there's the house and the barn and all sorts of other fences and shrubs to bounce off of. There's enough trees out here in the open field that it'll probably perform just fine, but we're going to test that out right now, including its auto mapping feature. So I'm going to map manually around the flower beds, but as we approach the driveway here, I'm going to turn on the auto mapping feature just so we can see how well it maps along the driveway. My lawn, because it's so open, it doesn't present itself well for auto mapping capabilities because there's not a whole lot of boundaries, but the driveway will be a good option to show you how that performs. So on these LiDAR mowers, I like to stay a little further back because it has to detect points on the map and boundaries. So I'm going to start mapping around right here. That way we can go up the hill. And the mapping on this is a little slower than some others that I've worked with, but it's done a really good job of maintaining the edges with its vision system and the LiDAR. So I'm going to get as close as I can over here. The all-wheel drive is really helpful on going up hills. Now when I get to the flower beds, I want to go into the flower bed a little bit because I do want it cutting the grass that lines the flower bed border. So you'll see me driving up into the bed a little bit. So now we've made it to the edge of the driveway. I'm going to turn this spot. And what's really nice about Mova's mapping features is you can just, all of a sudden, there's a button on the screen here. It says auto boundary detection. And it lets you know a little bit about it, and you can hit try now. And then it will continue to detect the boundary. So I'm going to exit auto mode, hit undo, move backwards because it got a little off and I had it on the wrong section. This is the first time I've tried this feature. So we're going to go all the way back, and I had it on follow, which means that it goes to the edge of the boundary. I want it on cross so it stays a little bit over the boundary. Okay, confirm deletion. Now exit editing, auto boundary detect, try now, and I want it on cross. So now it's doing a much better job. You see how it's staying, keeping the robot in the center of the driveway. We're going to take it a little down past the crab apples, and then I'm going to turn the auto off and continue manually mapping the rest of this section. So there's a new maple that I'm going to have it mapped to about the edge of right here. This is where one of my other mowers boundaries maps, about right here in the center. And we'll stop it here so it can continue mapping this area. All right, I'm going to take over manually right now, come up a little bit, and we're going to continue mapping the rest of this boundary. You can set no-go zones like other robot mowers, but in this area I kind of split the zone around this tree, so we're going to do that here too. And then the other ones I will create no-go zones. And then we'll cut across and finish mapping in front of this gate. So now that we've finished mapping the map, I'm going to set some no-go zones, because when you're editing a map with a LiDAR robot like this, they're kind of, the maps are based on where the base station is or the charging station. So you would need to send it back to the charging station if you wanted to edit the no-go zones later. So while it's already here in this location, I'm going to go ahead and set up the no-go zones. And those are going to be the flower beds I have out in the yard, and then all the trees that I have on the property. Now, it would detect trees if you just have regular just trees out in your yard and navigate around them. But all of mine have a mulch ring around them, so I want to make sure that's captured well. And I just find it's always good practice to just go ahead and put those boundaries in place, even if it would navigate around them, because it just makes the mapping and the planning a little more efficient for the robot when it cuts and plans out the route. So we're going to start with this little snaky hydrangea hedge I planted here last year. Let me just line up the robot, and there's already buttons on the screen. It says set no-go zone. So I'm going to line it up against the edge here, and then I'm going to hit set no-go zone, and then I'm just going to navigate around the flower bed like I would when I was mapping any other zone. And when it reaches the point where it started, it'll close the no-go zone map, and then we'll be good to go. And go on to the next one. And what's really interesting after this is done, which I've not seen in other robots, is it asks you to tell it what the no-go zone type is. That's just for your reference. So there's actually an option for flower beds. So I'm going to choose that. Confirm. And can see the little snaky boundary on there. Now I'm going to go wrap up the rest of them, and then we'll get it started mowing so we can see what the results are later this evening. So I finished mapping this entire area, including the no-go zones. I think I ended up with like 18 no-go zones, which is a lot. I then hit finish map and it failed. And the reason is because I hadn't set a path, which is great. Like, it won't let you finish mapping, but I was afraid I would have had to start over, and I didn't. So I just created that path back to the charging station and it went fine. Now what I'm interested to see and what it's performing really well at right now is navigating through the gate. So with the RTK bots I've had before, they have issues with the vision system blocking them from exiting gates sometimes, because this is LiDAR based and can detect the closeness of those things much quicker. It went through the gate just fine, and I just heard the mower deck cut on. So it says it's going to take roughly 7 hours to cut this area. My understanding is that was without recharge time. So it's on about 60% right now battery, after I had cut the pool backyard around the pool, and then I mapped, and so it ended up at about 60%. And so we'll see how long it takes, and I'll check in with you when it's done. So I just want to conclude this video that this has been a real pleasure to use robot, which I can't always say about things I try out in the garden. Like I mentioned, the docking is such a big, important part. Autonomous mowers are only autonomous to the point that they can get back and charge over and over repeatedly without issues. Let's take a look at the dock right quick, because I just want you to see this design and how thoughtfully it was thought out. So you still are going to have to do some weed eating. I have not come out here and done any weed eating around the dock. Eventually I placed this dock here to be in a position where there will be gravel underneath it. So that's something I will be doing here over the next several weeks as it's starting to warm up in the garden. But this is the dock. It has a nice brush at the top of it, which is replaceable, that comes out to clean the LiDAR system every time it docks. There's some reflectivity here for the camera to see. This is the actual docking mechanism, which has a hinge so it docks perfectly. And also these built-in navigation rails here so that the wheels dock perfectly. So as I said, this is a really nicely designed, thoughtfully designed dock. And that's what I've seen about Mowa's entire design process. So I am going to come over here and hit the stop so you can see the emergency stop, just in case you would need it. But inside there's a PIN code for to protect it from theft. It also has GPS if it gets picked up. But here's the dial that I was talking about. Really nice, clicky, premium automobile feel. There's play, and if you put your PIN number in, you can control the robot from here. So I just had to enter my PIN to get it out of emergency stop, and then I'm just going to hit play to continue. Close the cover and it'll get started. Now, Some things I would like to see improvements wise. Right now you can pick like imperial units for square footage. So here in the States we use the imperial system rather than metric. And so all of my sizing on the interface is in square feet, except the mower height. The mower height is still in centimeters. That is purely a software function that they could update. They've not done so yet. So I just had to do a little translating online to see what my ideal height is in centimeters versus inches. Set that once. I'm not changing the height of my grass very much unless we're in a drought. And so that doesn't matter so much. So I have this cut on about, I think, 5 centimeters. Next, and it's a little bit needy for me, but because this mower has performed so well, I would really like to see a model that is capable of cutting more acreage. I have 5 acres here, so I use a multitude of robotic mowers to cut the property. And because this has been my most impressed with robot I've tested over the couple years without issues, I would like more acreage, maybe a little faster with cut quality, maybe some stronger mowers. The thing about these robot mowers is it's typically not an issue how quickly they cut if you have a smaller property. This one goes pretty slow in standard mode, but it does an excellent job, so I haven't touched it. If you are cutting a bigger property, that becomes more of a problem. Like I said out front, that little less than 3/4 of an acre that it cut took about 9 hours with recharge time. And so that's a lot. That took a long time. That was standard mode, by the way. There is a mode where you can make it move a little faster, but I don't want to sacrifice cut quality. So I think if we can increase the speed at which it could cut while also increasing the power that it has, I would be a happy camper, along with the amount of map that it maps. Now, for the standard homeowner who lives on 1/2 an acre or 3/4 of an acre or 1/3 of an acre, like I did at my last house, this is going to work perfectly fine for you. It'll take maybe, depending on how many obstacles you have, all day to cut your lawn potentially. This area back here takes about 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on which way it's going. And I'm perfectly fine with that. That's not something that you have to worry about, as long as it's docking fine and recharging. Here, when it finishes cutting all of this grass back and forth, it still has about 60% battery left. Speaking to that, that's also something I would like to see that I've not seen in the interface yet. Some companies, both in the robotic vacuum space and electronic space in general, are giving you the option now to limit your charge capacity on batteries to allow those batteries to have a longer life. Lithium-ion batteries typically like to be charged to about 80% of their capacity. Charging them to 100% is fine. It can just shorten their life over time. So providing a limit to the charging capacity, like I have in some of my robot vacuums, would be nice. I'm also seeing this a little bit in the robot mower space starting to come along. That's simply a firmware update as well. So for those of you and those of us who live or have smaller lawns to cut with the Mova, 80% capacity is more than enough to finish some of those lawn sizes. And that would be a wonderful feature to get the most bang for your buck and battery life out of the mower. As I have mentioned in years past in robot mower reviews, I would like to see some type of weather implementation integration. I know weather data APIs are expensive, and those are expensive costs to integrate into an app. But there are some data sources that the customer could pull from directly on their property. I have some weather systems here that have an API or a login that the mower could connect to detect when it's raining, when bad weather may be coming, maybe adjust the schedule, smart scheduling to cut the grass a little earlier if you're having a rain come later in the day, to not even undock if the robot can tell that it is raining actively on your property right now. So those are just some integrations I think that would be nice to see as far as customer improvements. But like I said, even without all of those things, this robot has been the ideal robot mower for me on my property. So in conclusion, when Mova originally reached out to me, at the time they hadn't really announced to the public their 3000 series LiDAX, which was all-wheel drive. They have a 1000 and a 2000 series, which does not have all-wheel drive and cuts a much smaller area of property. I declined. I was like, I gotta have an all-wheel drive robot. I've gotta have something that cuts a little bigger property to make it worth my while and to make sure that my viewers understand if it can cut a property as big as mine, it can likely cut yours. And then they introduced me to the LiDAX 3, and I'm glad I accepted because this has been a pleasure to use. So this is a robot that I'm getting to keep and I will continue to use back here in the backyard. So if you follow along and subscribe, you'll be able to see throughout the season how this is doing. Right now, I've been totally blown away with its ability to cut the lawn and make like perfect lawn stripes for me. So thank y'all for joining me of this robotic mower review of the Mova LiDAX 3000. It has been a real pleasure to use. If you have any comments, drop them below in the YouTube comment section and we'll see if we can get those answered for you. If you're new here, like and subscribe, and you can follow me along for the rest of the season as this robot continues to mow and perform really well for me in the backyard. Thank y'all for joining, and remember, be a light. Take care. Bye.